two in one. If you are getting ready for the PMP exam, you should be able to correlate what these two are and how they are related. The cost baseline gives a solid expectation for performance cost-wise. The second thing listed, the project funding requirements, are the funding requirements for the project. These two are critical for success, especially on projects where the available funds needs to be well synchronized and timed so you don't run out of cash to get the deliverable done. So the cost baseline is talked about in section 7.3 on page 255 in none other than your favorite book, the PMBOK guide. You can see figure 7-8 breaks down the cost baseline components. For your exam, you need to know this figure 7-8 really well and understand what it means to say project budget versus cost baseline. So on every project, management should think, what if things don't happen as we expect? Let's put aside some management reserve in case things don't go as planned. What happens when the management reserve is needed? You ask for permission, you ask for help. That management reserve is then taken out, whatever quantity you need, and it becomes part of your cost baseline when it is authorized. But in order to discover this, you're going to have to read deep. Let's go to page 254, the last section there. It says management reserves are added to the cost baseline. Someone say, what? Indeed. This is why you need to read the PMBOK guide. There's a lot of stuff in here that is not in your average study guide. Seriously. Management reserves are added to the cost baseline to produce the project budget. As changes warranting the use of management reserve arise, the change control process is used to obtain approval. Watch this. To move the applicable management reserve funds into the cost baseline. So if you didn't take notice of that, please do now. You never know which questions you're going to face on your test. Last but not least, the project funding requirements are also talked about here. As an output, page 253, it says the expenditure of funds should be reconciled. No, not that. I beg your pardon. That is one of my favorites, but not that one. It's on page 256. I beg your pardon. Total funding requirements and periodic funding requirements are derived from the cost baseline. It then says the total funds required are those included in the cost baseline plus management reserves, if any. Funding requirements may include the sources of the funding. So all of that to say there's a lot of stuff in this book that needs to be mastered before you exam. Do yourself a favor, get into the details, make sure you know what you need to know. If you're wondering, how can I get more training like this? Go to Praizion.com. Also go to PMSucceed.com. Take a look at our training schedule and see when you can join one of our classes. If you want to study self-study mode, go to Praizion.com and check out our first panel on that screen. It's the self-study course of 35 contact hours. And that concludes the first 10 in a series of many regarding the power instruments of project management. Thank you for joining me, and I'll speak to you soon.